What if the person you trusted most, the father of your unborn child, was secretly building a new life behind your back tonight? We unravel a shocking true story of betrayal, deception, and one woman's unstoppable fight for justice. Imagine discovering a hidden will, secret bank accounts, and a mistress with deadly secrets, all while you're 6 months pregnant. How far would you go to protect your child when the entire world seems to turn against you? Stay with us as we dive into a web of billionaire corruption, heartbreaking family drama, and jaw-dropping plot twists that will keep you guessing until the very last second. If you love stories of courage, betrayal, and revenge, don't forget to hit like, drop your thoughts in the comments, share this story with your friends, and subscribe for more unbelievable dramas. Ready? Let's begin. The rain hammered against the floor-to-ceiling windows of the Manhattan penthouse as 34-year-old Emily Richardson placed her hand on her growing belly. 6 months pregnant with their first child, she had never felt more vulnerable or more in love. Her husband, tech billionaire Marcus Richardson, was everything she had ever dreamed of: successful, charming, and devoted to their growing family. Or so she thought. Emily's perfect world began to crumble on that stormy October evening when she discovered a hidden safe behind their bedroom portrait. Marcus had left for his weekly business trip to Silicon Valley, and Emily was organizing their walk-in closet for the baby's arrival. As she moved a heavy box of Marcus's college memorabilia, the portrait shifted, revealing a digital safe she never knew existed. Her heart pounded as she stared at the sleek black panel. Why would Marcus hide a safe from her? They shared everything: bank accounts, investment portfolios, even their deepest fears about becoming parents. The pregnant wife, betrayed by her husband's secrets, felt a cold dread wash over her. Emily's fingers trembled as she tried various combinations. Their anniversary date, nothing. Her birthday, nothing. Then, almost by instinct, she tried the date they first met at that charity gala 3 years ago. The safe clicked open with a soft beep that seemed to echo through their bedroom like a gunshot. Inside, Emily found documents that would shatter her world forever. The first was a manila envelope marked "Personal and Confidential" in Marcus's distinctive handwriting. With shaking hand, she pulled out a legal document that made her blood run cold, a secret will that Marcus had prepared just 2 months ago, right after they learned they were having a baby. But this wasn't just any will. This document revealed that Marcus had been planning to leave everything, his entire billion-dollar empire, to someone named Victoria Ashford. Not to Emily, not to their unborn child, to a woman Emily had never heard of. The heartbreaking family drama was just beginning to unfold as Emily continued reading. Victoria Ashford wasn't just a business partner or distant relative. According to the will's attached documentation, she was described as Marcus's life partner and true love. The words hit Emily like physical blows. How could the man who held her hand during every doctor's appointment, who painted the nursery himself, who whispered sweet promises to their baby every night, be planning to abandon them for another woman? Emily's hands shook as she found more documents in the safe. Bank statements showing massive transfers to offshore accounts in the Cayman Islands. Property deeds for a mansion in Tuscany purchased under Victoria's name. And most damning of all, a detailed timeline for transitioning custody arrangements that would begin immediately after their baby's birth. The pregnant wife's world collapsed as she realized the scope of Marcus's deception. This wasn't a sudden affair or a moment of weakness. This was a calculated plan that had been in motion for months, possibly even before she got pregnant. Marcus had been building a new life with Victoria while pretending to build a future with Emily. As thunder crashed outside their penthouse, Emily clutched the documents to her chest and felt their baby kick, as if sensing her distress. She had to know more about Victoria Ashford. Who was this woman who had stolen her husband's heart and their child's inheritance? Emily's investigation began that very night. Using Marcus's home computer, she knew all his passwords because they had promised complete transparency in their marriage. She started searching for any trace of Victoria Ashford. What she found made her feel sick. Victoria wasn't just Marcus's mistress. She was his former business partner from his days as a struggling startup founder. before he became the billionaire tech mogul Emily had fallen in love with. The affair with Mistress had been going on for over 2 years, spanning their entire courtship and marriage. Every romantic gesture, every loving word, every promise about their future together had been a lie. The most heartbreaking discovery came when Emily found their private email correspondence. Marcus and Victoria had been planning his exit strategy from his marriage since the day Emily announced her pregnancy. Victoria had convinced him that Emily was trying to trap him with a baby, that she was only interested in his money. The emails revealed Marcus's plan to wait until after the baby was born, then claim Emily was an unfit mother suffering from severe postpartum depression. He would use this as grounds for divorce and full custody, allowing him to disappear with Victoria and their child to start fresh in Europe. Emily spent the entire night reading through hundreds of emails, text messages, and financial documents. Each revelation was more devastating than the last. Marcus had even gone so far as to have Emily followed by private investigators, documenting her every move to build a case against her character. The man she trusted with her life had been systematically destroying it. As dawn broke over Manhattan, Emily made a decision that would change everything. She wasn't going to confront Marcus directly. She wasn't going to give him the chance to gaslight her or convince her she was imagining things. Instead, she was going to beat him at his own game. Emily carefully photographed every document in the safe, uploaded them to a secure cloud storage account Marcus didn't know about, and then returned everything to exactly how she found it. When Marcus came home from his business trip 2 days later, Emily greeted him with a smile and asked about his flight, all while planning her counterattack. The pregnant wife's transformation from trusting spouse to strategic warrior began in that moment. Emily realized that if she was going to protect herself and her unborn child, she needed to be smarter, more cunning, and more ruthless than Marcus had ever imagined she could be. But Emily had no idea that Victoria Ashford was about to make the first move in a game that would ultimately expose lies, destroy reputations, and reveal secrets that would shock everyone involved. The billionaire corruption ran deeper than even Emily suspected, and the courtroom battle that was coming would test everything she thought she knew about justice, love, and betrayal. 2 weeks after discovering the secret will, Emily put her plan into motion. She hired the best private investigator in New York City, a former FBI agent named Sarah Chen, who specialized in financial crimes and marital infidelity. Emily used her own inheritance money, carefully hidden from Marcus in an account he didn't know existed, to fund the investigation. Sarah's first report arrived via encrypted email just 3 days later, and it contained information that made Emily's previous discoveries look like minor infractions. Victoria Ashford wasn't just Marcus's mistress. She was a master manipulator with a history of targeting wealthy men. This was her fourth such relationship, and in each previous case, she had successfully convinced her lovers to leave their wives and transfer significant assets to her before disappearing. The midlife betrayal story Emily was living had been Victoria's specialty for over a decade. Sarah's investigation revealed that Victoria's real name was Veronica Sinclair, and she had been operating under false identities for years. She had a criminal record including fraud, identity theft, and extortion. The woman who had convinced Marcus that Emily was a gold digger was actually a professional con artist, but the most shocking revelation was yet to come. Sarah's surveillance showed that Victoria wasn't just planning to steal Marcus's money. She was pregnant too. 8 months along, just 2 months ahead of Emily's due date. This meant Victoria had gotten pregnant shortly after Emily announced her own pregnancy, almost as if she was racing to have Marcus's baby first. Emily felt physically ill as she processed this information. Marcus had been living a double life so completely that he was about to become a father twice over, with 2 women who were both counting on him to be there for their children. The affair with Mistress had produced not just emotional betrayal, but another innocent life that would be caught in the crossfire. The private investigator had more disturbing news. Victoria had been using her pregnancy to pressure Marcus into accelerating his timeline for leaving Emily. Sarah's team had intercepted communications showing that Victoria threatened to disappear with Marcus's baby if he didn't finalize his divorce and asset transfer immediately after Emily gave birth. Emily realized she was dealing with a woman who was not only stealing her husband, but was willing to use unborn children as weapons in her scheme. The heartbreaking family drama had multiple victims now. Emily, her baby, Victoria's baby, and even Marcus. Though Emily's sympathy for her husband was rapidly disappearing, armed with this new information, Emily made her next move. She scheduled a lunch meeting with Victoria, using a fake identity and claiming to be a potential business partner interested in Victoria's interior design company, another one of her many false fronts. The meeting took place at an upscale restaurant in Soho, and Emily arrived early to observe Victoria before introducing herself. What she saw was a stunningly beautiful woman in her early 30s, impeccably dressed in designer maternity wear that probably cost more than most people's monthly salary. Victoria carried herself with the confidence of someone who had never been told no, never been denied anything she wanted. When Emily approached Victoria's table, introducing herself as Lisa Morrison, she was struck by how warm and charming Victoria appeared. This woman could have been anyone's best friend, the kind of person who would offer to help with wedding planning or babysit your children. It was a masterful performance that explained how Victoria had fooled so many people for so long. "I'm so excited about this potential partnership," Victoria said, her hand resting on her pregnant belly in a gesture that mirrored Emily's own unconscious habit. "I believe beautiful spaces can transform people's lives. My current project is actually a nursery for my partner's first child. He's so excited to be a father." Emily had to grip her water glass tightly to keep from reacting. Victoria was talking about Marcus and their baby as if Emily didn't exist, as if she was just an obstacle that had already been removed from the equation. "That sounds wonderful," Emily managed to say. "Is he involved in the design process?" Victoria's eyes lit up with genuine happiness. "Oh yes, Marcus is so hands-on. He's insisted on doing all the painting himself. He says he wants every brushstroke to be filled with love for our baby." The words were like daggers in Emily's heart. Marcus was painting Victoria's nursery while Emily had been painting theirs. He was making the same loving gestures for both women, making the same promises, creating the same memories. The pregnant wife betrayed by her husband's lies felt her world spinning out of control. But Emily forced herself to continue the charade. She needed more information, needed to understand the full scope of Victoria's plan. Over the course of their 2-hour lunch, Victoria revealed details that made Emily's blood run cold. Victoria talked about the house in Tuscany that Marcus had bought for them, describing their plans to move there immediately after both babies were born. She mentioned Marcus's plan to sell his tech company and invest in European markets where certain financial regulations would be more favorable. Emily realized they were planning not just to steal Marcus's current wealth, but to help him evade taxes and hide assets from any future legal proceedings. Most disturbing of all, Victoria casually mentioned that Marcus had hired the best family law attorney in the country to handle his divorce. According to Victoria, the lawyer had assured them that Emily's chances of getting significant custody or financial support were minimal, especially if they could prove she was emotionally unstable. "Marcus is so relieved," Victoria confided, apparently feeling comfortable enough with Lisa to share intimate details. "He was worried about the stress of a difficult divorce affecting our baby, but his lawyer says it should be quick and clean. Apparently, his wife signed a prenuptial agreement that was very favorable to Marcus." Emily's heart stopped. She had indeed signed a prenup, but Marcus had assured her it was just a formality demanded by his lawyers and board of directors. He had told her it wouldn't affect anything because they would never divorce. Now she realized the prenup was probably another part of his long-term plan to leave her with nothing. As lunch ended and Emily prepared to leave, Victoria made one final revelation that would haunt Emily for weeks to come. "The funniest thing," Victoria said, laughing as she gathered her purse, "is that Marcus's current wife doesn't suspect anything. She's so naive, so trusting. Marcus says she actually thanked him for working such long hours to provide for their future. She has no idea those long hours are being spent with me, planning our real future, Emily walked out of that restaurant feeling like a completely different person than the one who had walked in. The woman she had been, trusting, optimistic, believing in the goodness of people, was gone forever. In her place was someone harder, more calculating, and absolutely determined to destroy both Marcus and Victoria before they could destroy her. That night, Emily began planning her counterattack. She would not be the naive wife who lost everything. She would not let Victoria steal her husband, her child's inheritance, and her future. The domestic violence might not be physical, but the emotional and financial abuse she was experiencing was just as devastating, and she was going to fight back with everything she had. The courtroom battle that was coming would expose more than just Marcus's secret will and Victoria's criminal history. It would reveal a web of lies, manipulation, and corruption that would shock the legal community and the media. Emily didn't know it yet, but her fight for justice was about to uncover a scandal that would destroy multiple lives and change everything she thought she knew about the man she married. But first, she had to survive the birth of her child while knowing that Marcus was counting down the days until he could abandon them both. The pregnant wife's strongest battle was still ahead, and Victoria was preparing moves that would test Emily's resolve in ways she couldn't imagine. Emily's baby arrived 3 weeks early on a snowy December morning, just as Marcus was supposedly attending a crucial board meeting in San Francisco. Emily had been experiencing contractions all night, but hadn't told Marcus, partly because she wanted to see if he would actually miss the birth of his child for Victoria. As Emily labored alone in their penthouse, calling only her sister for support, Marcus was indeed in San Francisco, but not at any board meeting. Sarah Chen's surveillance team was documenting him at Victoria's baby shower, celebrating the upcoming arrival of his other child. The photos Sarah sent Emily during her labor contractions showed Marcus glowing with happiness, his hand on Victoria's belly, surrounded by Victoria's friends who all believed he was a single father-to-be. Baby Sophia Richardson was born at 3:47 a.m., weighing 6 pounds and 2 ounces, perfect in every way except for the absence of her father. Emily held her daughter for the first time while Marcus was 3,000 miles away, toasting his future with his mistress. The heartbreaking family drama reached a new level of cruelty as Emily realized Marcus had planned to miss his daughter's birth. Marcus returned to New York 2 days later, rushing into the hospital with flowers and apologies about a flight delay. His performance as the devoted new father was flawless. He cried when he held Sophia, whispered promises about their future, and posted proud father photos on social media. Emily watched this charade with new eyes, seeing every gesture as calculated manipulation, but Emily's plan was already in motion. While Marcus was playing the role of loving husband and father, Emily's legal team was preparing to drop a bombshell that would destroy his carefully constructed double life. Emily had hired Margaret Thompson, one of the most feared divorce attorneys in Manhattan, known for her ruthless tactics and her perfect record in high-profile cases. Margaret specialized in cases involving hidden assets and international financial crimes. Exactly the expertise Emily needed to fight Marcus and Victoria's sophisticated scheme. The first phase of Emily's counterattack began when Marcus thought he was at his strongest. 2 weeks after Sophia's birth, while Emily was supposedly recovering and bonding with their baby, Margaret filed a massive lawsuit that would make headlines across the country. The lawsuit named not just Marcus as a defendant, but Victoria Ashford, 3 offshore shell companies, 2 international banks, and Marcus's tech company board of directors. The charges included fraud, racketeering, conspiracy, and violation of fiduciary duty. Most damaging of all, the lawsuit included every document Emily had photographed from the secret safe, plus hundreds of additional pieces of evidence that Sarah Chen's investigation had uncovered. Marcus received the legal papers at his office on a Tuesday morning, and according to security cameras that Emily's team had gained access to, his reaction was spectacular. He went from confident tech mogul to panicked criminal in a matter of minutes, immediately calling Victoria and then his lawyer, both conversations now being legally recorded as part of the investigation. But the real shock came when Marcus rushed home to confront Emily. He found his wife calmly nursing their daughter in the nursery he had painted, surrounded by toys and flowers from well-wishers. Emily looked up at him with a serene smile that didn't reach her eyes. "How could you do this?" Marcus demanded, waving the legal papers. "This is insane. Emily, you're destroying our family." Emily's response was delivered in a voice so calm and controlled that it was more terrifying than any scream could have been. "I'm protecting our family, Marcus, protecting our daughter from a father who was planning to abandon her before she was even born, protecting her inheritance from the woman you've been transferring it to for months, protecting her from growing up believing that love and marriage are just convenient lies people tell each other." Marcus tried to gaslight Emily, claiming she was suffering from postpartum depression, that she was imagining things, that the stress of new motherhood was making her paranoid. But Emily simply handed him a tablet displaying copies of all the evidence against him. "Victoria's real name is Veronica Sinclair," Emily said matter-of-factly. "She's a convicted felon who has done this to 3 other men before you. She's not really an interior designer. That's just her current cover identity." And Marcus, "She's not just pregnant with your baby. She had your baby. Last week, while you were pretending to be at business meetings, you were actually at the hospital for your son's birth." The color drained from Marcus's face as he realized Emily knew everything. But Emily wasn't finished. "Did you really think I wouldn't find out? Did you think I would just quietly disappear after you divorced me? Did you think I would let you steal my daughter's inheritance and give it to a criminal?" Marcus tried one last desperate manipulation. "Emily, please, we can work this out. I made mistakes, but I love you and Sophia. Victoria means nothing to me. I'll end things with her right now." Emily stood up, still holding Sophia, and looked at the man she had once loved with complete devotion. "It's too late for that, Marcus. You see, while you were planning to destroy my life, I was planning to destroy yours. Tomorrow, the FBI will be raiding your offices, your personal accounts, and Victoria's properties. They're very interested in the international money laundering scheme you've been running. Apparently, transferring assets to criminal accomplices to avoid taxes and divorce settlements is extremely illegal." The pregnant wife betrayed by her husband's lies had become a force Marcus never saw coming. Emily had spent months building an airtight case against him, while he thought she was the naive, trusting wife who would never suspect his deception. The next morning, the FBI raids began exactly as Emily had promised. Marcus's tech company stock plummeted as news of the investigation leaked to the media. Victoria's house in Manhattan was raided, revealing not just evidence of financial crimes, but a shrine to Marcus that included photos of Emily and Sophia, with Emily's face cut out. But the biggest shock came when Victoria was arrested at the hospital where she was still recovering from giving birth to Marcus's son. The baby, whom Marcus had never even met, was placed in emergency custody while authorities tried to determine his legal status. Emily watched the news coverage from her penthouse, holding Sophia and feeling a complex mix of satisfaction and sadness. She had successfully begun the destruction of Marcus and Victoria's plans, but the cost was enormous. Her marriage was over, her daughter would grow up in a broken home, and an innocent baby boy was caught in the middle of a war between adults. The affair with Mistress had produced not just emotional devastation, but legal catastrophe that would take years to resolve. Marcus faced potential prison time. Victoria was looking at charges that could put her away for decades, and Emily was about to become a single mother with a public scandal that would follow her family forever. But Emily felt no regret. As she looked at her beautiful daughter, she knew she had done the right thing. Sophia would grow up knowing that her mother had fought for her, had refused to be victimized, and had ensured that justice was served even when the cost was everything Emily had once held dear. The courtroom battle was just beginning, and Emily knew that Marcus and Victoria would fight back with everything they had. But she also knew that she held all the cards now, and she was prepared to play them perfectly. The Billionaire corruption case was about to become the biggest financial scandal of the year, and Emily Richardson was going to make sure the whole world knew exactly what kind of man Marcus really was. The midlife betrayal story had transformed into something much larger, a cautionary tale about trust, greed, and the lengths people will go to protect the ones they love. As the FBI investigation intensified, Victoria's carefully constructed life began to crumble faster than she could manage. Her assets were frozen, her fake identity was exposed, and worst of all, she was facing the possibility of losing custody of her newborn son permanently. The woman who had spent years manipulating wealthy men suddenly found herself completely powerless, and her desperation would lead to decisions that would shock everyone involved. Emily received her first direct contact from Victoria through an encrypted messaging app that couldn't be traced. The message was simple but chilling. "We need to talk. If you want to protect your daughter, you'll meet me alone." Against the advice of her security team and her lawyer, Emily agreed to meet Victoria at a neutral location, a small coffee shop in Brooklyn that Victoria's legal team had swept for surveillance devices. Emily arrived with a concealed recording device of her own, determined to document whatever Victoria was planning. The woman who sat across from Emily looked nothing like the polished, confident interior designer from their previous meeting. Victoria appeared haggard and desperate, her designer clothes replaced with generic jeans and a hoodie, her hair pulled back in a messy ponytail. But her eyes still held the calculating intelligence that had made her such a successful con artist. "You have no idea what you've started," Victoria said without preamble. "You think you're protecting your daughter, but you're actually putting her in danger." Emily remained calm, knowing that Victoria was trying to manipulate her. "The only danger to my daughter comes from people like you and Marcus. What do you want?" Victoria leaned forward, her voice dropping to a whisper. "Marcus isn't the man you think he is. Yes, he planned to leave you, but not for the reasons you believe. Emily, your husband is involved in something much darker than financial fraud. The money he's been moving offshore isn't just tax evasion. It's payment for services that could get you and Sophia killed if the wrong people find out what you know." The heartbreaking family drama was about to take a turn that Emily never could have anticipated. Victoria claimed that Marcus's tech company was being used to launder money for international criminal organizations, that his business trips to Silicon Valley were actually meetings with cartel representatives, and that his plan to disappear to Europe was motivated by fear, not love. "Why should I believe anything you say?" Emily asked, though Victoria's words had planted a seed of doubt. Victoria pulled out a burner phone and showed Emily a series of text messages that appeared to be between Marcus and unknown numbers. The messages referenced packages, delivery schedules, and client satisfaction in language that could be innocent business communication or something much more sinister. "I got pregnant on purpose," Victoria admitted, "but not to trap Marcus or steal his money. I needed insurance. Emily, I needed something that would keep me alive if Marcus's business partners decided I knew too much. A baby with Marcus's DNA is my only protection." Emily felt her world shifting again as she tried to process this new information. If Victoria was telling the truth, then Marcus wasn't just a cheating husband and financial criminal. He was potentially involved with dangerous people who wouldn't hesitate to harm anyone who threatened their operation. "Prove it," Emily demanded. Victoria reached into her purse and pulled out a small flash drive. "Everything is on here. Financial records, meeting notes, recorded conversations. Marcus has been using his company's encryption technology to hide communications for criminal organizations around the world. The FBI investigation you started is just the beginning. When the real criminals realize their network has been exposed, they're going to eliminate everyone who can testify against them." Emily stared at the flash drive, realizing that she might have inadvertently put herself and Sophia in mortal danger. The pregnant wife betrayed by her husband's lies was discovering that those lies ran deeper than she had ever imagined. "What do you want from me?" Emily asked again. "Protection," Victoria said simply. "For both of us and our children. Marcus is going to try to make a deal with the FBI, offering information about his criminal clients in exchange for immunity. When he does that, we become targets. I'm proposing we work together to make sure we all survive this." Emily's mind raced as she tried to decide whether Victoria was telling the truth or attempting another manipulation. The woman had already proven herself to be a master liar and manipulator, but the evidence she was presenting seemed too detailed and specific to be fabricated. "How do I know this isn't just another one of your schemes?" Emily asked. Victoria's response was to show Emily a photograph on her phone, a picture of Emily and Sophia leaving the hospital after the birth, taken from a car across the street. "Because they're already watching you. The license plate on that car traces back to a shell company owned by one of Marcus's clients. You started this investigation thinking you were fighting a cheating husband, but you actually declared war on an international criminal network." Emily felt cold fear wash over her as she realized the implications. Every public move she had made, every legal filing, every FBI raid had potentially been monitored by people who would kill to protect their interests. "What exactly are you proposing?" Emily asked, her voice barely above a whisper. Victoria leaned back in her chair, and for a moment, Emily caught a glimpse of the calculating predator beneath the desperate mother facade. "We disappear," Victoria said. "Both of us. With our children. I have contacts who can provide new identities, safe passage to countries without extradition treaties. We take whatever assets we can access quickly, and we vanish before Marcus's trial begins." Emily was speechless. Victoria was proposing that they abandon everything, their homes, their families, their entire lives, to escape the consequences of Marcus's criminal activities. "I won't run," Emily said firmly. "I won't let criminals chase me away from my life. And I won't trust a woman who has spent years destroying other people's families." Victoria's expression hardened. "Then you're signing your daughter's death warrant. When Marcus realizes he's facing life in prison, he'll give up every name, every detail, every piece of evidence he has. His clients will assume that everyone connected to him is a potential witness. They won't take any chances." Emily stood up to leave, but Victoria grabbed her wrist. "I'm trying to save your life. Emily, I know you hate me, and you have every right to, but our children don't deserve to die because of their father's choices." As Emily walked away from that meeting, she carried the flash drive Victoria had given her and a terrible uncertainty about what she should do next. The domestic violence she was experiencing had evolved beyond emotional and financial abuse into something that could threaten her very survival. That night, Emily hired additional security for herself and Sophia while she tried to verify Victoria's claims. The flash drive contained hundreds of files that painted a picture of Marcus's company as the center of a massive money laundering operation serving drug cartels, arms dealers, and human traffickers around the world. The Billionaire corruption case was revealing layers of criminality that made Marcus's affair and secret will seem like minor infractions. Emily realized she was no longer just fighting for her daughter's inheritance. She was fighting for their lives. But Emily also realized that Victoria's proposal to disappear was exactly what a master manipulator would suggest. By convincing Emily to run, Victoria could escape prosecution while positioning herself as a victim rather than an accomplice. Emily needed to find a third option, a way to protect herself and Sophia without playing into Victoria's hands. The next morning, Emily made a decision that would change everything. Instead of running or trusting Victoria, she called a press conference and went public with everything she knew. If Marcus's criminal clients were going to target her anyway, she would make sure the whole world was watching when they tried. The midlife betrayal story was about to become an international scandal that would expose criminal networks spanning multiple continents. Emily Richardson, the naive wife who had trusted the wrong man, was about to become the key witness in one of the largest criminal cases in modern history. But first, she had to survive Victoria's final, desperate gambit. The woman who had once seemed like the biggest threat to Emily's happiness was about to prove that a cornered predator is the most dangerous enemy of all. Emily stood before a room full of reporters in the conference center of the Manhattan Plaza Hotel, holding her 3-month-old daughter Sophia while facing cameras from every major news network in the country. The decision to go public with Marcus's criminal activities was either the smartest strategic move of her life or a death sentence for herself and her baby. Margaret Thompson, Emily's lawyer, had advised against the press conference, arguing that it would compromise the FBI investigation and potentially endanger Emily's safety. But Emily had realized that her safety depended on public attention, not secrecy. If Marcus's criminal clients were planning to eliminate potential witnesses, they would be much less likely to act against someone who had become a household name. "My name is Emily Richardson," she began, her voice steady despite the magnitude of what she was about to reveal. "3 months ago, I thought I was married to a successful tech entrepreneur. Today, I'm here to tell you that my husband, Marcus Richardson, has been using his company to launder money for international criminal organizations, and that his business partner and mistress is a convicted felon who has been helping him defraud investors and hide assets from law enforcement." The room erupted in questions and camera flashes, but Emily continued reading from her prepared statement. She detailed everything: the secret will, Victoria's criminal history, the offshore accounts, the encrypted communications with criminal clients, and the threats she had received since going to the FBI. The affair with Mistress became secondary to the revelation that Richardson Technologies had been processing payments for drug cartels, arms dealers, and human trafficking networks for over 2 years. Emily's personal heartbreak had uncovered a criminal enterprise worth hundreds of millions of dollars. But the biggest bombshell came when Emily revealed the existence of Marcus's son with Victoria and the custody battle that was about to expose how deep the corruption really went. "Marcus Richardson has a second child with his criminal accomplice," Emily announced. "That child is currently in protective custody because both parents are under federal investigation. What the FBI discovered when they investigated that baby's birth certificate led them to a network of fraudulent documents spanning multiple countries." Emily paused to let the implications sink in. Victoria's baby wasn't just the product of an affair. His birth certificate was part of a larger identity fraud scheme that Victoria had been operating for years. "The woman my husband calls Victoria Ashford has used at least 6 different identities over the past decade," Emily continued. "She has given birth to children with 3 different men, using each pregnancy to establish new false identities and gain access to their financial resources. The baby she had with my husband is her 4th child with her 4th victim." The pregnant wife betrayed by her husband's lies had discovered that Victoria was not just a con artist, but a serial predator who used pregnancy and motherhood as weapons in sophisticated criminal schemes. The press conference made international headlines within hours. Emily's story became the lead story on every major news network, with legal experts debating the implications of the Richardson Technologies scandal and child welfare advocates calling for investigation into Victoria's other children. But the most significant reaction came from an unexpected source. Within 6 hours of Emily's press conference, 3 other women came forward claiming to be previous victims of Victoria's schemes. Each woman told a similar story. They had been married to wealthy men who had become involved with Victoria, who had convinced their husbands to transfer assets to her before disappearing with their children. The heartbreaking family drama Emily thought she was experiencing alone turned out to be part of a pattern that had been repeated across multiple states and countries. Victoria wasn't just a mistress who had gotten pregnant. She was a professional criminal who specialized in destroying families for profit. Margaret Thompson called Emily that evening with news that would validate her decision to go public. "The FBI has arrested Victoria's mother and sister in Florida," Margaret reported. "Apparently, they've been running a coordinated operation. Victoria seduces wealthy men while her family members handle the financial fraud and identity theft aspects. Emily, you weren't just fighting for your marriage and your daughter's inheritance. You uncovered a multi-generational criminal enterprise." But going public also brought new dangers. Emily's security team reported suspicious vehicles outside her building, threatening messages on social media, and attempts to access her building's security system. The Billionaire corruption case had attracted attention from people who wanted to silence her permanently. The most chilling message came through an encrypted app similar to the one Victoria had used. "You've made a mistake going public. There are people involved in this who don't care about media attention. Protect your daughter." Emily realized that exposing Marcus and Victoria publicly might have saved her from one type of danger while creating another. The criminal organizations that had been using Richardson technologies for money laundering were now dealing with international scrutiny and law enforcement attention they had never faced before. That night, Emily made another decision that would shock everyone involved in the case. She called Victoria directly, using the number from their previous meeting. "You did this," Victoria said as soon as she answered, her voice filled with rage. "You've destroyed everything I built." "I protected my daughter," Emily replied calmly. "Something you've never done for any of your children." Victoria's laugh was bitter and cold. "You have no idea what you've unleashed. Emily, Marcus's clients don't forgive and they don't forget. Going public was the stupidest thing you could have done." "Maybe," Emily acknowledged, "but now the whole world is watching. If anything happens to me or Sophia, everyone will know who's responsible." There was a long pause before Victoria spoke again, and when she did, her voice had changed completely. The mask of desperate mother had fallen away, revealing the calculating predator underneath. "You think publicity will protect you? These people I'm talking about have eliminated witnesses in broad daylight. Emily, they've made people disappear from federal protection programs. Your press conference just painted a target on your back and your daughter's." Emily felt a chill of fear, but she refused to let Victoria hear it in her voice. "Then I guess we'll both have to hope the FBI catches them before they catch us." Victoria's final words before hanging up would haunt Emily for weeks. "I tried to save you, Emily. I really did. But now we're all dead women walking." The domestic violence Emily was experiencing had evolved beyond anything she could have imagined when she first discovered Marcus's secret will. She was no longer just fighting a cheating husband and his criminal mistress. She was standing against an international network that had killed to protect smaller secrets than the ones she had exposed. But Emily also knew there was no going back. The press conference had been her declaration of war against everyone who had tried to destroy her family. Win or lose, she was committed to seeing this fight through to the end. The next phase of the battle would take place in federal court, where Emily would have to testify against Marcus while trying to stay alive long enough to see justice served. The midlife betrayal story had become a fight for survival, and Emily was about to discover that Victoria's threats were just the beginning of the dangers she would face. The world was watching Emily Richardson now, but she was about to learn that sometimes being in the spotlight just makes you an easier target. The federal courthouse in Lower Manhattan had been transformed into a fortress for the Richardson Technologies trial. Metal detectors, armed marshals, and bomb-sniffing dogs created an atmosphere more suited to a terrorism trial than a financial fraud case. Emily arrived each morning knowing that she was walking into a building where Marcus's criminal clients might have placed threats against anyone who testified against their network. Marcus's trial began 6 months after Emily's press conference, and the prosecution's case was built largely on the evidence Emily had discovered in the secret safe. The pregnant wife's betrayal by her husband's lies had provided the FBI with their first glimpse into a criminal enterprise that spanned continents and involved billions of dollars in illicit transactions. Emily's testimony began on a Tuesday morning in early summer, with Sophia safely hidden in protective custody at a location Emily wasn't even allowed to know. The separation from her daughter was agony, but Emily knew it was necessary for both their safety. As Emily took the witness stand, she made eye contact with Marcus for the first time since the FBI raids. The man sitting at the defense table looked nothing like the confident billionaire she had married. Marcus appeared gaunt and desperate, his expensive suits unable to hide the toll that months in federal custody had taken on him. But the biggest shock came when Emily realized that Victoria was also in the courtroom, seated in the gallery behind Marcus's legal team. Victoria looked different again. Her hair was now blonde instead of brown. Her face seemed altered by subtle plastic surgery, and she was wearing the kind of conservative business suit that suggested respectability rather than seduction. Emily's lawyer, Margaret Thompson, began with direct examination that established Emily's credibility and the timeline of her discoveries. Emily testified about finding the secret safe, the will that left everything to Victoria, and the offshore accounts that Marcus had been funding with company money. "Mrs. Richardson," Margaret asked, "when you discovered these documents, What did you believe your husband was planning to do? Emily's answer was delivered clearly and calmly. Despite the emotional weight of the words, I believe Marcus was planning to abandon our newborn daughter and me to start a new life with his mistress, using money he had stolen from his own company to fund their escape. The heartbreaking family drama played out in federal court as Emily detailed the emotional devastation of discovering her husband's betrayal while pregnant and vulnerable. But the personal betrayal was just the foundation for the larger criminal case. Marcus's defense attorney, a high-priced criminal lawyer named Robert Sterling, began his cross-examination by attacking Emily's character and motivations. Mrs. Richardson, isn't it true that you hired private investigators to spy on your husband? Sterling asked. I hired investigators to uncover the truth about criminal activities that were threatening my family's safety and financial security, Emily replied. And isn't it true that you secretly recorded conversations and stole private documents from your husband's personal safe? Margaret Thompson objected, but Emily was allowed to answer, I documented evidence of crimes that my husband was committing. I protected that evidence to ensure it could be used to prosecute those crimes. Sterling's strategy was to portray Emily as a vindictive wife who had fabricated evidence to punish her cheating husband. But his approach backfired when he made the mistake of suggesting that Emily's discoveries were motivated by jealousy rather than justice. Mrs. Richardson, you were angry about your husband's affair, weren't you? Emily's response would become one of the most quoted moments of the trial. Mr. Sterling, I was angry that my husband was planning to steal my daughter's inheritance to fund a life with a convicted criminal. I was angry that he was using his company to launder money for organizations that traffic in human misery. The affair was just personal heartbreak. The criminal enterprise was a threat to public safety. The affair with Mistress became a minor detail compared to the massive financial crimes that Emily's testimony was exposing. The prosecution used Emily's evidence to show how Marcus had diverted over $200 million through Richardson Technologies to criminal clients around the world. But the most dramatic moment of Emily's testimony came when the prosecution introduced evidence that even Emily hadn't known existed. Margaret Thompson approached the witness stand with a thick folder of documents. Mrs. Richardson, I'm showing you what has been marked as Prosecution Exhibit 47. Can you identify this document? Emily looked at the papers and felt her blood turn cold. It was another will, dated just 2 weeks before Sophia's birth, that went even further than the secret will she had discovered. This document didn't just leave Marcus's wealth to Victoria. It also granted Victoria full custody of any children Marcus had with other women in the event of his death or incapacitation. Marcus was planning to take Sophia away from me completely, Emily whispered, the impact of this new revelation hitting her like a physical blow. The Billionaire corruption case took on new dimensions as the prosecution revealed that Marcus and Victoria had been planning not just financial fraud, but custodial kidnapping. Victoria's pregnancy wasn't just about securing Marcus's love and money. It was about positioning herself to claim legal custody of all his children. Margaret Thompson continued, Mrs. Richardson, are you familiar with the legal concept of in loco parentis? Yes, Emily replied, though she wasn't sure where this was leading. According to this document, your husband was attempting to establish Miss Ashford as a legal guardian for your daughter, giving her the right to make decisions about Sophia's welfare, education, and residence. Were you aware of this arrangement? Emily felt the courtroom spinning around her as she realized the full scope of Marcus and Victoria's plan. They weren't just going to steal money and disappear. They were going to steal her daughter too, using legal documents that would make their custody claim appear legitimate. No, Emily said, her voice breaking. I had no idea Marcus was trying to give another woman legal authority over our daughter. The heartbreaking family drama reached new depths as Emily understood that Victoria's scheme went beyond financial fraud into child trafficking. The woman who had appeared to be just a gold-digging mistress was actually planning to steal Emily's daughter and disappear with both of Marcus's children. During a recess, Emily confronted Margaret about why this evidence was being introduced for the first time during her testimony. The FBI found this will in Victoria's possession when they arrested her, Margaret explained. It was part of a larger collection of forged legal documents that she's been using to establish false custody claims for years. Emily, Victoria has been taking children away from their mothers for over a decade. Emily realized that the press conference she had given to protect herself and Sophia had actually saved other children too. The investigation into Victoria's activities had revealed a network of custody fraud that had destroyed families across multiple states. When court resumed, the prosecution introduced testimony from FBI agents who had been investigating Victoria's other victims. The domestic violence Emily had experienced was part of a pattern that included identity theft, financial fraud, and systematic child abduction. Agent Sarah Martinez testified that Victoria's network had been responsible for at least 12 cases of custodial interference and 6 cases of outright child abduction over the past 8 years. The pregnant wife betrayed by her husband's lies had uncovered a criminal enterprise that specialized in destroying maternal bonds for profit. As Emily's testimony concluded, she looked once more at Victoria in the gallery. The woman who had once seemed so confident and in control now appeared nervous and desperate. Victoria's carefully constructed facade was crumbling under the weight of evidence that exposed her as a serial predator who used pregnancy and motherhood as weapons. But Emily's victory in court would be short-lived. That evening, as she returned to her secure hotel room, Emily received a message that would change everything once again. The trial is just for show. We have your daughter. If you want to see her again, you will recant your testimony tomorrow. The midlife betrayal story had become a nightmare that threatened to destroy everything Emily had fought to protect. The courtroom victory was meaningless if Victoria's criminal network could reach Sophia even in federal protection. Emily faced an impossible choice: continue testifying and risk her daughter's life, or let Marcus and Victoria escape justice to save the most important person in her world. The pregnant wife who had once trusted everyone was about to learn that sometimes the only way to protect your child is to sacrifice everything else you believe in. Emily stared at the threatening message on her phone screen, her hands shaking so violently she could barely hold the device. The hotel room that was supposed to be her secure sanctuary suddenly felt like a prison. Every shadow seemed to hide a threat. Every sound in the hallway could be someone coming for her. She immediately called the FBI task force leader, Agent David Chen, who arrived at her hotel within 20 minutes, accompanied by a full security team. Agent Chen's face was grim as he examined the message and began coordinating with the U.S. Marshals who were protecting Sophia. "We're verifying your daughter's safety right now," Agent Chen assured Emily. "But we need to assume this threat is credible until we can confirm otherwise." The 23 minutes Emily waited for confirmation that Sophia was safe were the longest of her life. She paced the hotel room, imagining every horrible scenario, blaming herself for putting her daughter in danger by fighting back against Marcus and Victoria's criminal network. When Agent Chen's phone finally rang, Emily watched his face carefully for any sign of bad news. His expression remained neutral as he answered, but Emily could see tension in his shoulders that suggested the news wasn't entirely good. "Your daughter is safe," Agent Chen said after ending the call. "But there was an incident at the safe house. 3 men attempted to breach the perimeter around midnight. They were repelled by our security team, but they managed to get close enough to take photographs of the building and possibly identify which room Sophia is being held in." Emily felt like she was drowning in panic. The heartbreaking family drama had become a situation where her infant daughter was being hunted by professional criminals who wouldn't hesitate to harm a baby to silence her mother. "We're moving Sophia to a new location immediately," Agent Chen continued. "But Emily, you need to understand that these people have resources and connections we're still discovering. They knew exactly where to find your daughter, which means they have inside information about federal protection protocols." The pregnant wife betrayed by her husband's lies was discovering that the corruption went deeper than even the FBI had suspected. Marcus and Victoria's criminal network included people with access to the highest levels of law enforcement, making no location truly safe. "What do you want me to do?" Emily asked, though she already suspected what Agent Chen would recommend. "We think you should continue your testimony tomorrow as planned," he said. but we're going to announce that you've received credible threats and that additional security measures are being implemented. That might force their hand and help us identify who's feeding them information." Emily realized they were asking her to use herself as bait while her daughter remained in hiding. The domestic violence she was experiencing had evolved into a situation where both she and Sophia were being used as pawns in a larger game between federal authorities and international criminals. That night, Emily couldn't sleep. She sat by her hotel window, looking out at the city lights and thinking about the woman she had been just 8 months ago. The trusting wife who had painted nurseries and planned baby showers seemed like a different person entirely. The woman she had become was harder, more suspicious, and absolutely terrified that her fight for justice might cost her daughter's life. At 3 a.m., Emily's phone buzzed with another message from an unknown number. "Tomorrow you will tell the court that you fabricated the evidence against your husband. You will say that you planted the documents in his safe and that you hired people to create fake financial records. If you do this, your daughter will be returned to you unharmed. If you continue with your testimony, she will disappear forever." Emily forwarded the message to Agent Chen and tried to think through her options. If she recanted her testimony, Marcus would likely be acquitted and Victoria's criminal network would remain intact. They would be free to continue destroying other families while Emily and Sophia would always be looking over their shoulders, waiting for the next threat. But if she continued testifying, she risked losing Sophia forever. No amount of justice for other victims would be worth sacrificing her daughter's life. Emily spent the remaining hours before dawn writing letters, one to Sophia explaining her decisions, one to her sister asking her to take care of Sophia if anything happened, and one to the media explaining what she had discovered about the criminal network that had infiltrated federal law enforcement. When morning came, Emily dressed carefully in a navy blue suit that made her look professional and credible. She was going to court, but she hadn't decided what she would say when she got there. The courthouse was surrounded by even more security than before, with FBI agents positioned at every entrance and snipers visible on nearby rooftops. The threat against Emily had prompted the most extensive security operation in the courthouse's history. As Emily walked into the courtroom, she saw Victoria sitting in the same seat as the day before, but now Victoria was smiling. It was a cold, calculating smile that told Emily everything she needed to know about who was behind the threats against Sophia. Marcus looked confused and nervous at the defense table, clearly unaware of the night's developments. Emily realized that Victoria was operating independently now, using resources and connections that Marcus didn't even know existed. When court resumed, Emily retook the witness stand and waited for the prosecution to continue their direct examination. Margaret Thompson approached with more documents, preparing to introduce additional evidence against Marcus. But Emily interrupted before Margaret could speak. "Your Honor, I need to address the court about threats I received last night regarding my testimony." The judge, a stern woman named Justice Patricia Hawkins, looked surprised but nodded for Emily to continue. Emily's next words would either destroy Victoria's criminal network or cost her everything she held dear. "Last night, I received credible threats against my infant daughter's life if I continued testifying in this case. The people making these threats have demonstrated their ability to locate federal witnesses and penetrate law enforcement security. I want the court to know that I am continuing my testimony despite these threats, because the criminal enterprise we're exposing here represents a danger to every family in America." The courtroom erupted in chaos as reporters began shouting questions, and Victoria's smile disappeared completely. Justice Hawkins called for order, while Agent Chen and his team began scanning the gallery for potential threats. Emily had made her choice. She would not be intimidated into silence, even if it meant risking everything to protect other families from experiencing the heartbreaking betrayal she had endured. The Billionaire corruption case was about to enter its most dangerous phase, as Emily's decision to continue testifying would force Victoria's criminal network to make a move that would expose the full extent of their power and reach. But Emily's courage would come at a price that would test every assumption she had about justice, law enforcement, and the lengths people will go to protect the ones they love. The affair with Mistress had revealed a criminal empire, And Emily was about to learn that bringing down an empire requires sacrifices that no mother should ever have to make. Emily's decision to continue testifying, despite the threats against Sophia, triggered a chain of events that would unravel Victoria's criminal network faster than anyone had anticipated. Within hours of her courtroom statement, the FBI task force received intelligence that changed everything they thought they knew about the case. Agent Chen approached Emily during the lunch recess with news that was both terrifying and hopeful. We intercepted communications suggesting that Victoria's network is planning to eliminate all potential witnesses within the next 48 hours. But Emily, they made a critical mistake. In their panic to coordinate this operation, they used communication channels that we've been monitoring. The pregnant wife betrayed by her husband's lies was about to witness the destruction of the criminal enterprise that had threatened her family, but the process would be more dangerous than she could imagine. What does that mean for Sophia? Emily asked, cutting straight to what mattered most. It means we know where they're planning to take her, Agent Chen replied. Victoria's network has been using the same safe house in New Jersey for abductions and intimidation operations for months. We have a team preparing to move on that location tonight. Emily felt a mixture of relief and terror. If the FBI was right, Sophia would be safe within hours. But if they were wrong, or if Victoria's network had anticipated the raid, Emily might never see her daughter again. The afternoon session of the trial continued with Emily's testimony about the financial documents she had discovered. But now every word she spoke was being delivered with the knowledge that her daughter's life hung in the balance. The heartbreaking family drama was playing out in real time as Emily tried to maintain her composure while imagining FBI agents preparing to risk their lives to save Sophia. Marcus's defense attorney, Robert Sterling, seemed unaware of the developing situation and continued his strategy of portraying Emily as a vindictive wife. But his questions became increasingly irrelevant as the prosecution introduced new evidence that shifted the focus from Marcus's affair to the larger criminal conspiracy. Mrs. Richardson, Margaret Thompson said during redirect examination, you mentioned discovering offshore accounts in your husband's name. Did you also find evidence of accounts in other names? Emily nodded and detailed how she had uncovered a network of shell companies and false identities that Victoria had been using to move money and establish fraudulent custody claims. The affair with Mistress was revealed to be just one component of a sophisticated operation that had been destroying families for profit across multiple states. But the most dramatic moment came when the prosecution called an unexpected witness, Agent Sarah Martinez, who had been investigating Victoria's network independently for 2 years. Agent Martinez testified that Victoria's real name was actually Rebecca Sinclair, and that she was part of a multi-generational criminal family that specialized in what law enforcement called domestic terrorism through family destruction. The Sinclair network targets wealthy men with young children, Agent Martinez explained. They infiltrate the families through romantic relationships, then systematically destroy the marriages while stealing assets and gaining custody of the children. The children are then used as leverage against the fathers to ensure continued cooperation in money laundering operations. Emily felt sick as she realized the full scope of what Victoria had been planning. Sophia wasn't just going to be kidnapped. She was going to be used as a permanent hostage to ensure Marcus's cooperation with criminal activities for years to come. The Billionaire corruption case was exposing a form of organized crime that went beyond financial fraud into systematic child trafficking and family destruction. Emily's personal betrayal had uncovered an operation that threatened the safety of children and families across the country. During a brief recess, Agent Chen received a phone call that made him smile for the first time in days. He approached Emily with news that would change everything. We have them. The raid on the New Jersey safe house was successful. We recovered your daughter and arrested 6 members of Victoria's network, including her mother and sister. Emily nearly collapsed with relief as Agent Chen continued. Sophia is safe and unharmed. She's being brought back to New York under heavy escort and will be returned to you as soon as we complete security protocols. The domestic violence Emily had been experiencing through threats and intimidation was finally ending. But the legal battle was far from over. Victoria's arrest at the safe house had provided the FBI with evidence that would expose the full extent of her criminal network. When court resumed, the prosecution announced that Victoria Ashford, also known as Rebecca Sinclair, had been arrested on charges of kidnapping, extortion, and racketeering. The woman who had been sitting calmly in the courtroom gallery was now in federal custody. Her decade-long crime spree finally ended. Marcus's reaction to this news was visible from across the courtroom. The man who had been planning to abandon his family for Victoria suddenly realized that he had been manipulated by a professional criminal who had never loved him at all. His face showed a mixture of shock, betrayal, and dawning understanding of how completely he had been used. Emily felt no sympathy for Marcus as she watched him process Victoria's true identity. The heartbreaking family drama had revealed that both Emily and Marcus had been victims of Victoria's manipulation. But Marcus had chosen to become her accomplice, while Emily had chosen to fight back. The prosecution used Victoria's arrest to introduce additional evidence that had been seized from the safe house, including detailed records of her previous victims and their children. The pregnant wife's betrayal by her husband's lies had exposed a criminal enterprise that had been operating for over a decade, destroying dozens of families and traumatizing countless children. Agent Martinez testified that the Sinclair network had been responsible for at least 37 cases of custodial interference, 12 cases of child abduction, and millions of dollars in financial fraud across 7 states. Victoria's relationship with Marcus wasn't unique. It was a proven business model that she had perfected over years of practice. As Emily's testimony concluded, she looked at Marcus one final time and saw a broken man who was finally understanding the consequences of his choices. The billionaire who had thought he was clever enough to abandon his family and escape with his criminal lover was facing life in prison, while his daughter would grow up knowing that her father had chosen money and lust over his family's safety. That evening, Emily was finally reunited with Sophia in a secure FBI facility in Manhattan. As she held her daughter for the first time in days, Emily realized that the worst was finally over. Victoria's network was destroyed. Marcus was facing justice, and Sophia was safe. But Emily also knew that their ordeal had changed her permanently. The trusting woman who had believed in the goodness of people was gone, replaced by someone who understood that evil could wear a charming face, and that protecting your family sometimes requires fighting battles you never wanted to face. The midlife betrayal story had ended with justice served and family protected, but the scars would remain forever. Emily Richardson had saved her daughter and exposed a criminal network, but the cost had been her innocence and her faith in the institutions she had always trusted to keep families safe. The affair with Mistress had revealed that sometimes the people closest to you are the most dangerous enemies you'll ever face, and that a mother's love is the only force strong enough to overcome criminal conspiracies that threaten everything you hold dear. 6 months after Victoria's arrest and the destruction of her criminal network, Emily sat in the same federal courthouse for the final phase of Marcus's trial. The man who had once been her husband now faced a potential life sentence for his role in money laundering, conspiracy, and accessory to kidnapping charges related to the threats against Sophia. The courtroom was packed with media representatives and families of Victoria's other victims. Emily had become the face of a movement to protect families from sophisticated criminal operations that exploited trust and love for profit. The pregnant wife betrayed by her husband's lies had become an advocate for dozens of other women who had experienced similar domestic violence through systematic deception. Marcus's sentencing hearing began with victim impact statements from the families Victoria's network had destroyed over the years. Emily listened as mother after mother described losing their children to a woman they had trusted, losing their savings to men they had loved, and losing their faith in their ability to protect their families from predators who specialized in exploiting parental bonds. When it was Emily's turn to speak, she approached the podium holding a recent photo of Sophia, now 9 months old and thriving, despite the chaos that had surrounded her first months of life. "Your Honor," Emily began, her voice steady and strong. "Marcus Richardson was my husband, the father of my child, and the man I trusted to protect our family. Instead, he chose to partner with criminals who threatened our daughter's life to protect their illegal operations." Emily's victim impact statement detailed not just the financial crimes Marcus had committed, but the emotional devastation of discovering that her marriage had been built on lies and that her child had been viewed as a commodity to be traded for criminal cooperation. The heartbreaking family drama we experienced wasn't just personal betrayal, Emily continued. It was domestic terrorism designed to destroy our family structure and use our love for each other as a weapon against us. Marcus didn't just steal money, he stole our sense of safety, our ability to trust, and our daughter's right to grow up with parents who put her welfare above their criminal ambitions. Marcus's defense attorney had argued for leniency based on his cooperation with federal authorities and his claim that he had been manipulated by Victoria. But Emily's statement made clear that Marcus had made deliberate choices to prioritize his relationship with a known criminal over his responsibilities as a husband and father. Justice Patricia Hawkins sentenced Marcus to 25 years in federal prison, with the possibility of parole after 15 years. The Billionaire corruption case had resulted in one of the longest sentences ever handed down for financial crimes involving family exploitation. Victoria's sentencing had taken place 2 weeks earlier, resulting in a life sentence without possibility of parole for her role as the leader of a criminal enterprise that had destroyed families across multiple states. The affair with Mistress had been revealed as part of a business model that had generated millions of dollars in illegal profits while traumatizing dozens of children. After the sentencing, Emily met with Agent Chen and the FBI task force that had protected her family and dismantled Victoria's network. The investigation had led to 37 additional arrests and the recovery of over $50 million in stolen assets that would be returned to victims' families. "What you did took incredible courage," Agent Chen told Emily. "Most people in your situation would have taken the money and disappeared. By fighting back, you saved not just your own family, but dozens of other families who would have been victimized if Victoria's operation had continued." Emily accepted the recognition, but she knew that her motivation had been simple: protecting Sophia from predators who viewed children as tools for criminal enterprises. The domestic violence she had experienced through threats, intimidation, and systematic deception had strengthened her resolve rather than breaking her spirit. 6 months later, Emily published a book about her experience titled "The Secret Will: How I Exposed My Husband's Criminal Empire and Saved My Daughter's Life." The book became a bestseller and established Emily as a leading advocate for families affected by sophisticated financial crimes and custody fraud. Emily used the proceeds from her book and the civil settlement from Marcus's estate to establish the Sophia Foundation, a nonprofit organization that provides legal assistance and security services to families threatened by criminal operations that exploit domestic relationships. The midlife betrayal story had transformed Emily from a trusting suburban wife into a powerful advocate for family protection. She testified before Congress about the need for enhanced penalties for crimes that target families, and she worked with law enforcement agencies to develop better protocols for protecting children from custody-related criminal enterprises. But Emily's greatest victory was simply watching Sophia grow into a happy, healthy toddler who would never remember the terrifying first months of her life. Emily had kept her promise to protect her daughter, and she had done it without compromising her principles or fleeing from the fight. 2 years after the trial, Emily met someone new, a pediatric social worker named David, who had been working with children rescued from custody fraud operations. Their relationship developed slowly, built on shared experiences of protecting vulnerable children and a mutual understanding of how precious family bonds could be when they were genuine. Emily's trust had been shattered by Marcus's betrayal, but she had learned to distinguish between healthy caution and paralyzing fear. The pregnant wife who had once believed everyone deserved the benefit of the doubt had become a woman who verified trust through actions rather than words. When David proposed to Emily on Sophia's 3rd birthday, he did so in the presence of Emily's lawyer, her security team, and a background check that would have impressed the FBI. Emily said yes, not because she had learned to trust blindly again, but because she had learned to trust wisely. The heartbreaking family drama that had begun with Emily's discovery of a secret will had ended with her creating a new family built on transparency, shared values, and mutual protection. Sophia would grow up with a stepfather who understood that earning his place in their family meant proving his commitment to their safety and happiness every single day. Emily's story became a cautionary tale about the dangers of blind trust, but also an inspiring example of how courage and determination could overcome even the most sophisticated criminal schemes. The affair with Mistress had revealed a world of deception and exploitation, but it had also revealed Emily's strength and her willingness to fight for what mattered most. The Richardson technology scandal led to new legislation protecting families from financial fraud and custody manipulation. Emily's testimony before Congress helped pass the Family Protection Act, which enhanced penalties for crimes that exploited family relationships and provided better resources for victims of domestic financial abuse. But Emily's greatest legacy was Sophia herself, a little girl who would grow up knowing that her mother had fought the most powerful forces of evil to keep her safe, and that family bonds could survive any attack when they were built on genuine love rather than criminal conspiracy. The Billionaire corruption case had ended with justice served, criminals imprisoned, and families protected. Emily Richardson had proven that sometimes the most ordinary people are capable of extraordinary courage when the safety of their children is at stake. 3 years after Marcus's sentencing, Emily thought her nightmare was finally over. The Sophia Foundation was thriving, helping dozens of families each year escape similar criminal schemes. Emily's book had been adapted into a documentary that was educating people worldwide about the dangers of sophisticated financial predators who targeted families. Life with David was stable and happy, and 4-year-old Sophia was a bright, confident child who showed no lasting effects from her traumatic first year. But Emily's sense of security was shattered when she received a phone call that brought back all the terror she thought she had left behind. "Mrs. Richardson, this is Agent Jennifer Walsh with the FBI. I need to speak with you immediately about Victoria Sinclair and your safety." Emily's blood ran cold. Victoria was supposed to be serving life in prison without possibility of parole. There should be no reason for the FBI to be calling about her safety 3 years later. Agent Walsh arrived at Emily's office within an hour, accompanied by the same Agent Chen who had protected Emily during the original investigation. Their expressions were grim as they explained why they had come. "Victoria Sinclair died in federal prison last week," Agent Walsh began. "But before she died, she made arrangements that are now threatening your family's safety." Emily felt the familiar panic beginning to build as she realized that Victoria's criminal network might still be active, even after their leader's death. The heartbreaking family drama she thought was over was about to begin again. "What kind of arrangements?" Emily asked, though she dreaded the answer. Agent Chen pulled out a thick file folder. "Victoria spent her time in prison writing detailed instructions for her remaining associates on how to continue her operations. She also established what amounts to a bounty system for anyone willing to eliminate the people who testified against her network." Emily stared at the agents in disbelief. "You're telling me that Victoria is still trying to hurt my family from beyond the grave?" "More than that," Agent Walsh continued, "we've intercepted communications suggesting that Victoria's instructions include specific plans for targeting your daughter. Apparently, Victoria believed that destroying your family would serve as a warning to other potential witnesses that there's no statute of limitations on her network's revenge." The domestic violence Emily had experienced years earlier was about to be renewed by people who viewed terrorizing children as a legitimate business strategy. The pregnant wife betrayed by her husband's lies was discovering that some forms of evil never truly die. "We're recommending immediate relocation for your family," Agent Chen said. "New identities, new location, complete separation from your current life until we can neutralize the remaining members of Victoria's network." Emily thought about everything she had built since the trial: the foundation, her relationship with David, Sophia's friendships and school, the life she had worked so hard to create after escaping Marcus and Victoria's criminal world. "No," Emily said firmly. "I won't run. I won't let these people chase me away from the life I've built. And I won't teach my daughter that criminals have more power than the people fighting for justice." Agent Walsh looked concerned. "Emily, these aren't the same amateur criminals you dealt with before. Victoria's prison communications indicate she was in contact with international organizations that have resources and capabilities far beyond what her original network possessed. Emily realized that Victoria's arrest and imprisonment had actually connected her with more dangerous criminals, rather than isolating her from criminal activities. The billionaire corruption case had evolved into something with global implications that threatened not just Emily's family, but every family that had been helped by the Sophia Foundation. "What do you need from me?" Emily asked, making the same choice she had made years earlier, to fight rather than flee. Over the next several hours, Agent Walsh outlined a plan that would use Emily and her family as bait to draw out Victoria's remaining associates. The operation would be dangerous, but it offered the possibility of destroying Victoria's network permanently rather than living in fear indefinitely. Emily agreed to the plan, but with conditions that protected Sophia and David while still allowing her to serve as the target that would attract Victoria's followers. The affair with Mistress had taught Emily that sometimes the only way to protect your family is to put yourself in danger to eliminate the threat completely. The operation began 2 weeks later when Emily announced that she was writing a second book that would expose additional details about Victoria's criminal network and reveal the identities of associates who had never been prosecuted. The announcement was designed to force Victoria's followers to act before Emily could publish information that would destroy their remaining operations. The response was immediate and terrifying. Within days, Emily received death threats through multiple channels. Her office was vandalized, and suspicious individuals were spotted conducting surveillance of her home and the Sophia Foundation offices. But Emily was no longer the naive woman who had discovered her husband's secret will. She had learned from her previous experience and had prepared for this possibility. Her home was equipped with military-grade security systems. Her movements were coordinated with federal protection teams, and every aspect of her life was designed to catch criminals rather than avoid them. The climactic confrontation came when 3 men attempted to abduct Sophia from her preschool, not knowing that the preschool was actually an FBI facility designed to look like a normal school, while providing complete protection for children of witnesses in federal cases. The attempted kidnapping triggered a coordinated law enforcement response that led to arrests across multiple states and countries. Victoria's international connections were revealed to include human trafficking networks, drug cartels, and terrorist organizations that had been using her family destruction model to destabilize communities and governments worldwide. Emily's decision to fight rather than hide had exposed a criminal enterprise with implications far beyond her personal experience. The heartbreaking family drama that had begun with her discovery of Marcus's betrayal had evolved into an international operation that would make Emily one of the most important witnesses in modern criminal justice history. But the victory came at a cost that reminded Emily why she had wanted to leave this world behind. The stress of living under constant threat had affected David's health. Sophia was struggling with nightmares despite the FBI's efforts to protect her, and Emily realized that choosing to fight meant accepting that her family would never be completely safe. The midlife betrayal story that had begun with Emily's pregnancy had become a lifelong commitment to protecting other families from the kind of sophisticated evil that most people never imagined existed. Emily Richardson had become a warrior in a war she never wanted to fight, but her courage had saved countless families from experiencing the heartbreak she had endured. As Victoria's final network was dismantled and her last associates were imprisoned, Emily finally felt that justice had been fully served. The pregnant wife who had once trusted everyone had become a woman who understood that protecting innocent people sometimes requires a lifetime of vigilance against predators who view family love as weakness to be exploited. Emily's story had no perfect ending because evil is never completely defeated, but it had a meaningful ending because her courage had made the world safer for families everywhere. The affair with Mistress had revealed the depths of human criminality, but it had also revealed the heights of human courage when applied to protecting the people you love most. Sophia would grow up knowing that her mother had fought monsters to keep her safe, and that legacy of courage would guide her through whatever challenges she might face in a world where not everyone deserves trust, but everyone deserves protection from those who would exploit their love and vulnerability for profit. The billionaire corruption case had ended with Emily Richardson proving that ordinary people can overcome extraordinary evil when they refuse to be victims and choose instead to be protectors of everything that makes life worth living.